Every story of collapse, every story of an empire falling apart, it always begins somewhere. And sometimes it starts with the death of just one person whose absence ends up unleashing a whole century of chaos. Today, we're going to look at how the fall of one incredible empire set the stage for a really brutal conflict over faith, law, and identity itself. Okay, let's dive right in. What you're looking at here shows us that the crisis we're about to get into didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Now, this was a slow burn, something that was set in motion over 150 years. It all kicks off with Alexander the Great, and as you can see, his death is the spark that directly leads to this massive power vacuum. And out of that vacuum, the Seleucid Empire is born. And that's the very kingdom where our story takes place. So, let's start right at the beginning. You've got Alexander the Great, son of Philip the Macedonian. This guy goes out and carves one of the biggest empires the ancient world has ever seen. But what happens when a force of nature like that just vanishes? I mean, he reigned for just 12 years, but it was this whirlwind of conquest that left the entire earth quiet before him. But then, right at the absolute peak of his power, he gets sick and he dies. He leaves this enormous kingdom to his generals, the guys who were supposed to be his most trusted servants. But his death, well, it wasn't an ending. It was more like the starting pistol for a brand new and way, way more chaotic era. This single line from our source, it just says it all, doesn't it? As soon as Alexander was gone, boom, his generals all put crowns on their own heads. The unity he hammered together through conquest just shattered into a million pieces. And for years and years to come, the result was simply this: evil multiplied. So out of all this widespread chaos, new dynasties start to pop up. And from one of these new royal lines, a very specific individual comes to power. And he is going to become the central bad guy of our story. Okay, this chart right here really helps keep the story straight for us. You can see the direct line of succession, right? Alexander's empire gets shattered, his generals become kings, and one of those new kingdoms is the Seleucid Empire. Fast forward a few generations, and right from this very line, our main character, Antiochus IV, shows up. He is literally a product of this imperial fracture. Now, what's so interesting here is the language the source uses to introduce him. He's not just a king, he's not just a descendant. No, he's called a wicked root. So from the very first time he's mentioned, he's framed as something corrupt, something dangerous. It's a huge sign of the trouble to come. But here's the thing, Antiochus's rise was made a whole lot easier by a division that was already happening inside Judea. Some pretty influential men started arguing that they should just abandon their old traditions and embrace Greek culture, what we call Hellenization. So they built a Greek-style gymnasium right in Jerusalem. They forsook their holy covenant, and they actually went to the king to get permission to live like their neighbors. So this internal division totally sets the stage for what happens next. After a really successful military campaign down in Egypt, Antiochus, who is now full of pride and flush with victory, he turns his attention toward Jerusalem. And he doesn't just attack once, he launches two separate and totally brutal assaults on the city. So the crucial point here is that this was a calculated campaign. The first attack was basically a smash and grab. He entered proudly into the sanctuary and just stripped it of all its gold, its silver, its precious vessels. But then, 2 years later, he comes back with a totally different tactic: deceit. He speaks words of peace, waits for the city to trust him, and then he falls upon it, burning it, taking women and children captive, and just destroying its people. And he didn't just leave after that. Oh no, he set up a permanent military base right in the heart of Jerusalem. He fortified a citadel and staffed it with what the text calls a sinful nation, wicked men. This fortress became a constant threat, this sore snare just lying in wait against the sanctuary, shedding innocent blood until the city's own people had to flee, turning Jerusalem into a city of strangers. So, with the city physically dominated, Antiochus switches up his strategy. The war was no longer just about territory or treasure, it became a war on culture, a war on identity, and a war on faith itself. He issues a kingdom-wide decree. Now, for a ruler like Antiochus, whose empire was huge and really diverse, forcing a single Greek culture on everyone was actually a political tool. It wasn't just about his ego, it was a strategy to consolidate power and create a population that was easier to control. His goal was this kind of fake unity built by erasing unique local identities. And this policy took special aim at the laws of the Jewish people.
And this right here just brilliantly shows how systematic his approach was. This wasn't random cruelty. It was a step-by-step plan to completely dismantle a way of life, forbid their core religious practices, defile their holy days, force them to worship idols and sacrifice unclean animals, erase the physical sign of their covenant, and finally destroy their sacred texts, all to make them forget the law.
And the penalty for not going along with this? It was simple, and it was absolute. Anyone who refused to follow the king's new laws would be put to death. The choice could not have been more clear. Abandon your faith or lose your life. This decree forced absolutely everyone to make a decision. For so many in Judea, this brought the conflict to its ultimate climax. Were they going to assimilate and live, or were they going to hold true to their laws and die? In the 145th year of the Greek kingdom, the persecution hits its absolute peak. An idol altar, what the text calls the abomination of desolation, was built right on top of the altar in the holy sanctuary. I mean, this was the ultimate act of defilement. It was a symbol that their most sacred space had been completely conquered and profaned. And the enforcement was just brutal, merciless. Anyone caught with a book of the law was killed, and the books themselves were torn apart and burned. And in a just unbelievably horrific act, women who chose to circumcise their sons according to their law were executed, with their own babies hanged from their necks.
And yet, even in the face of this absolute terror, many refused to break. The source tells us they were fully resolved, and they chose to die rather than profane their holy covenant. They decided they would not be defiled. And so, they died. It's just a simple, powerful statement of their incredible conviction.
And really, it all boils down to this one fundamental question. When the state declares your very identity to be illegal, forcing you to choose between your life and your conscience, what is the true cost of belief? That's the dilemma right at the heart of this story, a storm that started with the death of one king and ended with countless people having to make the ultimate choice.